Hello and welcome to the final video for Isekai month. Of course, as soon as I start recording I get a power cut. Of course, that happens. Thankfully it didn't seem to last too long, so we're just gonna keep going and hope everything's gonna be okay. But yes, final video of Isekai month. I have been both really pleased and disappointed in myself. Pleased that I have managed to put out actual reviews about lots of Isekai and try and spread the joy of the love, but also disappointed because there was a bunch more I hoped to do, but I just ran out of time / been sick, busy. I just ultimately, because I would really like to try and do it again, do a load more pre-planning than I ended up doing is the goal, and also not be really busy at the beginning of the month. Yes, today's Isekai theme is my favourite, so there isn't really going to be, and of course the cat's just causing such a mess, so there isn't going to be sort of an ongoing theme between the different series apart from the fact that Isekai and I really enjoy them, so they are going to be a bit all over the place. So this isn't to say series in the previous videos I don't enjoy, that's not necessarily true, just I really was trying to group themes together if I could. You'll also probably see some series in this video that could definitely fit in some of the other videos, but like I wanted to keep them for my favourites. And real quick, just before we get into it, remember to like, comment and subscribe, and be sure to check out my social media and affiliate links found down below, such as the Dudettes Discord server, and use code Caketinz on Sci-Fi for 10% off. Woo! I'm hopefully going to get another box from them in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll be filming another massive unboxing. It's probably the biggest haul I've ever ordered. And as always with all these Isekai videos, there will be a volume in this that I am giving away, so be sure to keep an ear out for which one it is. I'm actually not too sure where to start. I mean, there has never been a particular order for that I have done these in. It's just kind of what's on top of the pile, let's go. Might as well just start with this series. It is Quality Assurance in Another World. Now I do also want to preface with some of these series, I might say I don't think they're like really good or great, but I love them and it's one of my favourites, and this is I think one of them. I think it's an Isekai that is okay, but because I adore the premise so much, it's become one of my favourites, even though I only have one volume. But this probably might be one of my like most excited new series pre-orders I've done in years, purely because I worked as a QA engineer for like 5-6 years before moving into consultancy, and even now I specialise in quality assurance. So when I saw there was an Isekai coming out based around quality assurance, I lost my mind. And apparently my voice. This guy here is sort of isekai'd into a game to perform in-game quality assurance, in-game testing, and there is a group of them trying to test, and they need to create sort of a log of what they're doing and how many times they do it and the steps and the results. Just a standard test case if anyone is also in that sort of area like me. And they're only meant to be in there for so many days or months, I can't remember exactly, and then they're meant to be pulled out. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they don't hear anything and they're stuck in there. Now this guy is very dedicated to his craft, mad respect, and he keeps testing. He just keeps continuing doing his test runs, creates logs. Other people have kind of ambled off, or unfortunate things have happened to them whilst they were testing, and he kind of ends up pairing up with this NPC that he kind of saves out of a scripted game loop where she isn't meant to get through it. Without being too spoiler, it's chapter 1 though, it's chapter 1, or very early chapter, first half of the volume at least, and it kind of pulls her out and she's kind of in a weird limbo, and she ends up sort of travelling with him as he kind of tries to figure out a bit more of what's happening, try to find some other of the testers in the game. Now some of the testers have gone a bit rogue and are using some of their exploit dev debug skills to just kind of rule the land and do what they want, but he is a good tester, he's a good QA engineer, and he doesn't do that. I absolutely adore like some of the things they talk about and things they do is things that I used to do day to day with the whole test case and test logs, and the things they try to do to break the game and look for like problem issues or bugs and stuff. I loved it so much. It was just like, oh my god, I've got representation. Like, I enjoy New Game because it is women in engineering, and there are people who work in dev and test, and it is really nice to see it, but this is like so specialized to what I used to do, and oof. As I said, I don't think it's like amazing, and I definitely feel if it's something you do, you'll appreciate it more because of that. So that's why I say this one is like, it's a favourite, not because I think it's necessarily amazing, but because it was like written for me. Like if they throw a villainess in here and it was plastic wrapped, like I would almost be concerned at how perfect a series it was for me. I have volume 2 on pre-order. Apparently there's like 8 in Japan, and apparently there's an anime coming next year, which I think I might actually need to watch. I might need to watch, because there are some things I want to see how they do it in the anime and also giggle, and also because I work with Ben and he's a dev, and I want to just like tell him off and be like, look at these terrible things these devs have done, you're terrible like that dev. So far I've given this series a 9 out of 10. There's going to be some real bias numbers in this video. Also, this one might be a bit longer because I couldn't narrow down which ones would be my favourite, so I was like, I'll just keep talking about them. It'll be a longer video, I guess. Oh, I hope my voice holds out at this rate, goddamn. Next up we have So I'm a Spider, So What? Now, I actually held off picking this series up for quite a long time because I am not a big fan of spiders at all in the slightest, and I was like, I don't really want to read a series about spiders when I don't like spiders. But what changed my mind was I held off picking up Toilet Bound to Nuka-Kun because it had the word toilet in the title, and then when I picked it up I really enjoyed it, and I was like, maybe I just start ignoring if series have words that put me off. So I think like after I read Toilet Bound to Nuka-Kun, I went and ordered volume 1 of this and volume 1 of Sweat and Soap. I think this is a really good isekai if you're interested in reading about like the power fantasy but without the booby harem. I mean, first off, for a good chunk of the story so far, there are no other like speaking characters apart from the spider. So the spider was in a classroom in Japan, something happens, they wake up and they are a baby spider surrounded by so many other baby spiders and a giant big mummy spider. Mummy spider starts eating baby spiders, and our main character's like, gotta get out of here, runs off and realizes they're kind of stuck in this like underground sanctum dungeon. It's massive either way, and I'm like, okay fine, I need to try and survive. And they do have a like sage skill. I can't remember the exact name. I think sage. I'm thinking of another isekai when I say it, but they can kind of do like appraise and view stats and stuff. But like they're kind of just on their own. Like all the conversation is really with themselves. There are other monsters in the dungeon, and they like communicate. Well, I was just gonna say they communicate. They don't. They talk like at them, but the other monsters don't talk back. It's just the spider to themselves. Now once or twice they do run into humans, but like they don't really communicate because they can't. What I really like is like quite heavy stat usage. The spider like gains XP and has health and stamina and MP, and they can level up, and there's like a evolution route for them to choose from. Like, okay, I can evolve into this or I can evolve into this. Which way am I gonna go? What am I trying to do? What are my goals? Pretty much their goal is, for the chunk of the beginning of the manga at least, from what I've read, is to get out of the dungeon. And I don't want to say anything else post that because, I mean, there's major spoilers. We're talking, so we can spoil the first volume or so, but we can't spoil past that. I like the heavy stat and skill usage. That's one of my favourite things about isekai, and this one does it so well. And I think it still works quite well in manga. Sometimes I feel like, because when you're in a light novel, you've got the page, you can just read, have like a page of stats. A manga, that sometimes can be just a bit too much. Now, some people might say it's still a bit too much in this, which is fair enough. For me, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that pretty much it's just us and the spider going on the journey trying to figure out what's happened, where to go from here. There is also a spin-off series called Daily Lives of the Komoko Sisters. There is like 5 volumes of this out in English. However, you can't start reading this without spoilers until you get to about 7-8, I think, of the main series. There's something that happens in the main series which means this can happen. This is just a 4-coma silly comedy thing. It's okay. I'm actually not up to date with reading the volumes I have, because again, it's okay. I think the main series is way better. And also we got light novel, which has once again got quite a different art style to the manga cover. The manga cover's always got this girl but with her head not quite in frame, and then on the light novels we've got this version. Actually, what's really interesting, as there is an anime for this series as well, the design of the spider is different across light novel, manga and anime. Actually, I just think it's neat. I'm sure there are reasons, and they kept redesigning it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'm fairly sure the spider is different across all 3. I think I quite like the manga one, even though I think the manga one might be one of the more creepy ones. I'm not sure. I was a bit lazy because a lot of my favourite Isekai series, it turns out, are upstairs, and I didn't want to carry all of the very long series down, so I only have 1 volume down with me. But there are 12 volumes out in English, though my 12 hasn't arrived yet. It also isn't releasing too often. I want to say 1 or 2 a year maybe. It's not quite 2 a year, but it's not quite 1 a year, I think. So far I've given this series an 8 out of 10. My big worry actually is because these are all series I really like, I'm going to talk a lot. And I've got more to talk about than I usually do. Next up is Otherworldly Izakaya Nobu. Now, I see mixed feelings on this. Some people said it's a bit slow, it's a bit dull. I think it's just delightfully heartwarming. There isn't too much plot to it. Basically, this Izakaya is in Japan, and now one door takes you to Japan, and one door takes you out to this like fantasy shamanic village. And it's like a sort of village where they don't have like running water or fresh food too often. It's a very meat and potato kind of society. So when they go into this izakaya and they're offered the sort of things you get in a Japanese izakaya, like fried goods, fresh fish, that sort of thing, kind of blows their mind a little. But what I think is quite heartwarming is a lot of the chapters are kind of just sort of one-off. Someone goes in with a problem and they eat some good food and they feel really happy by the end of it. Even though it's quite a formulaic rinse and repeat sort of thing, it's just really nice. And also it's really nice to view food in manga. Food always looks really good in manga no matter what, and it's just really nice and lovely. Like, and also how excited they get about food. Like, they go in and the knight's like, I'll have a drink, what do you have? And the guy's like, well, we've got something on tap. And they get confused and they think on tap is like the name of the drink. And they go around and be like, oh, you need to try it on tap, it's so good. And they get all confused. And they're like, how is the drink cold? How do you have fresh water? How do you have all this? At least from what I've read so far, they're just like focused on getting some good food. Truly delicious. It's nice. It's nice to read. And look at this guy. It's like a more wholesome version of Food Wars. Like, instead of eating something and losing their clothes and making noise, they kind of just have a slight existential crisis as they're like, what do I do with my life now? I'll be honest, I don't actually have too much more to say. As I said, that's pretty much the series, but it's just a really nice, chill read if you want something that doesn't really blow your head too much. I do believe there is a light novel of this, but I don't think it's in English at the moment. I did try googling it. I think they came up in Chinese maybe? Not too sure. Amazon wasn't very helpful. But there are currently about 11-12 volumes out at the moment. I only have up to volume 7. I do have 6, it's just I've realised over there right now and I'm already sat down. I'd say the only real problem with it is because it's an Udon entertainment series, it does mean it's a bit pricier. You do get some neat French flaps though, if that tickles your fancy, but most of the time I actually try and pick them up secondhand when I can. I'm not actually sure, there's maybe volume 1 I bought new, but I think the rest I've all picked up secondhand. They don't pop up too often though. I mean, it's been a few years and I've finally not got any gaps up to 7, but I am still behind because there's like 11 or 12 out at the moment. I think it is still ongoing as well. So far I've given this series an 8 out of 10. Next series we have is The Otherworld's books depend on the bean counter. Right, this might be half the video me talking about this series. I read this series about 4 or 5 days ago. Currently there are only 3 volumes out in English. In fact, I think 4 has only just come out in Japan, and I don't imagine we'll get it too quickly in English. It's just not a horrendously fast release. And all I knew about this was that it was the BL Isekai. I didn't know anything else about it. I was like, what does bean counter mean? No idea. Basically, our main character is this guy, Kondo, and he is like a very typical Japanese salaryman. Works overtime, works holidays, works late, weekends, dedicated to the job, does his job very well. His life is about his work. And he is on his way home one day and he hears a scream down an alleyway, and he runs and sees a woman being pulled into a summoning circle. Well, you look at it and you're like, it's a summoning circle. He might have looked and gone, there's a weird thing on the floor and she's being pulled into it. He lunges forward to try and help her, and they both are pulled through and isekai'd to another world. She is then escorted away with everyone fawning over her and calling her a heavenly maiden or something like that, and everyone like looks at him and is like, shit, what do we do with him? He's escorted away, and it's explained that this kingdom is facing a crisis, as often happens, and they summoned the woman who would be able to solve it. Sometimes she can be found in the kingdom, sometimes she can be found in the world, and sometimes she is found in an otherworld which requires them to perform a summoning ritual, which is what happened. And he accidentally, through trying to be good, got pulled through. And they're like, real sorry about that. We'll pay for you to like live a life, provide housing, some food. You'll be fine. And he's like, no, I need a job. You need to give me a job. You need to give me work to do. And then there's a moment of, are you sure you don't have to do anything? And he's like, no, I need to work. I need to work. I'm like, fine, okay. What can you do? And he's like, okay, how do I explain what I can do to this fantasy world? I can't start listing off my like qualifications. That won't mean anything. And he's like, okay, I'm good at math and accounting. Like, cool, put you in the accounting department. Turns out the accounting department it's not corrupt, it's just a bit shit. And they don't really do any actual accounting, they just stamp the papers and let them go through. And he's like, we're hemorrhaging money, the kingdom's gonna go into a downfall with this blight that's happening at the moment. We're gonna have to start doing some proper policies. And he kind of starts fixing up the finances of this kingdom. A lot of people are really grumpy at first, and then finally, like, the Prime Minister, like, big guy, is like, actually, he's gonna help us sort things out. We're gonna keep him close to hand. We get back to that in a moment. All of this happens, this is pretty much volume 1, and I'm reading it, I'm like, I don't really get, where's the BL? Where's the BL? Everyone was like, it's the BL Isekai. Now we do see this other guy on the cover. He is the head captain of one of the group of knights, and he keeps giving our poor Isekai guy weird looks and like warns him like, Prime Minister's watching you. It's like kind of helpful. So then Kondo has discovered there's this potion that he can drink where it kind of relieves his fatigue, sore muscles, tiredness, and he's like, excellent, I can do so much more work, I'll just keep drinking these. But not knowing that you can overdose, and he is drinking some on his way back, having bought some more to the palace, and he starts to actually overdose. Guess who finds him? It's the night guy! Oh. So volume 1 ends with him kind of helping him recover from his sickness, and it turns out, for some reason, because he's not a saint maybe, or he's from another world, he has a very low resistance to like magic and magicals in the air sort of thing. Midichlorians, whatever it's called. One of the best ways to build up a resistance is normally if you're a baby, it'd be like your mother holding you, being surrounded by her magic and stuff, but because he's not had that, he's not built up that resistance, this guy starts to do it instead. And the best way is fluids, and then stuff happens basically. And he gets very, very protective of Kondo, and I must say, I don't want to spoil any more, and I was like, okay, this is where the BL happens. But, okay, I want to talk more about it with trying to spoil it. So volume 1 doesn't have a huge amount of what I'd consider like BL interactions, and then it really heats up in volume 2 and volume 3. What I felt though reading it was, I kept forgetting I was reading a BL. I don't know how to describe it, like, it just didn't click as like a BL. It was just like, this is just like the perfect kind of romance that I want to read. It's got nice drama, but the characters are like already kind of committed to each other and they care, and there's a really protective one, and there's one that keeps getting into trouble and he has to protect him. I didn't really care like the genders or sexualities of the characters, it was just I wanted that dynamic, and this was like the perfect series for the dynamic I was looking for. There's been a part of me that's wondered, like, are BLs not overly my kind of thing? I've read quite a few, and I often find a lot of them can be a little dull, especially a lot of them are set in the real world, and in general, even not just BLs, I find too much stuff reading too much stuff in the real world I can find a bit dull. I prefer fantasy, drama, that sort of thing. But thankfully, okay, no, it's not BL, I just need to find the right kind of story, and this is it. Oh, the drama, oh, the beginning of volume 3, ah! When I say, like, I didn't know what to do with myself when I finished volume 3, because I don't have volume 4, I'm not exaggerating. I don't remember the last time I read a series and loved it this much. Like, I have already reread the series in the past few days, and I have never done that before. I've never done that before. But I couldn't not have more of these characters and seeing the situation between the two of them. Personal preference, I would love a little bit more smut. It's very like, it's not a plastic wrap series. There are intimate moments that you kind of see, but it's kind of framed where you kind of just like see faces and stuff. You don't see anything. But I would personally love to see a bit more, but I understand. I'm fine if it doesn't. It just, yeah. But genuinely, if you are looking for like a fantasy isekai romance, I would absolutely recommend this one. I would even like, I would happily like feel like I don't even think you need to mention that it's a BL. I understand that might put some people off, but I really hope it wouldn't. If you're just looking for that fantasy, try this. That drama, the like, God, moments, this, and I was completely taken unawares, did not expect it, thought it was going to be more lighthearted. I mean, it's still quite lighthearted, but there are just such good drama moments. Anyway, I'm not over this series at all. I love it so much, and I'm desperately heartbroken that I might have to wait an inconceivable amount of time to get another volume. I think reading 1, 2, and 3 back to back really helped, because I feel volume 1 kind of just setting up the world and the situation and the plot, and then 2 had quite a big like cliffhanger at the end, and I would died if I could not read volume 3 straight away. I can't remember what happened at the end of volume 3. I don't think the cliffhanger at the end of volume 3 bothers me as much as the one at the end of volume 2, because I needed to see some dumb reactions. Volume 3 is just really neat, and I can't wait to see more of what happens, but volume 2, like... Also, some of the side stories are just so super cute, like in volume 3, with just the cushion. How could I get so emotionally attached to a cushion? I mean, I'm even making Ben read this. This is going to be Ben's very first BL. So far, Ben's only read volume 1, and he was like, it's just like a weird Japanese accounting fantasy. He's like, salaryman goes into world and fixes world with accounting. And I'm like, okay, yeah, when you say it that way, you need to read more, okay? But he'll only read 1 a week, so I have to wait till next week for him to read volume 2 and like properly start to appreciate it. I don't have too much more information on this because this was a very much last minute add to the videos. I've not done any extra research on it, but I have given this series a 9.5 out of 10. I absolutely do adore it, and it's only 3 volumes so far. Please. And then you can come and have an existential crisis with me. Please, I need company. We are not even halfway, so let's keep going. Really hope my phone doesn't overheat. I've had an awful time with the heat in the UK causing my phone to overheat, so I have to keep stopping and starting, and it's a pain, and then pointing the fan at my phone. Hopefully we hold out a bit though it's really warm in here. Next up we have Exo-Drive Reincarnation All Japan Isekai Battle Tournament. This is another one where I don't think it's very good at all. I'm not even sure I would want to recommend it, but I really like the premise and how dumb it is. It's just, I mean, trying to describe it to someone is just great. Basically, in this series, Isekai has been turned into a sport. So there is a whole thing where you go to a tournament and you get run over by a truck, and then you are isekai'd. And this has been gamified, basically. It's a big, like, tournament thing where you go into a world and you're trying to do things to the world. You're trying to save the world. And the more you do to save the world, the more points you get. and whoever has the most points by the end wins. Now, you do not need to go into the game, the Isekai, on your own. You're able to take what is basically an equivalent of like a Yu-Gi-Oh card sleeve, but with like memory sticks with super cheat powers, and you can use these super cheat powers to help you in the world, like hyper knowledge, or what some of the weird ones actually, I can't remember. But there's what like the arm looks like, and they can use those in the world to help them gain points. And when they're in the world, people can like watch, they've got like a screen. Now this is the bit I'm not too clear on, because they're in the world for years often, trying to like build plans, fight enemies, stuff like that, but like on the outside the game only lasts like a couple of hours maybe, max. It's not too clear. I assume time just runs faster in the Isekai. And that is kind of the plot. As I said, I think it's really, when they're in a game, when they're in an Isekai, it's really neat to see how they use these cheat skills to save the world, because often them trying to save the world isn't necessarily about doing what's best morally. Sometimes it's just, what can I do to get more points? Or like, are there any clipping or broken abilities I can use to get around the world quicker or fight things quicker? And it's just kind of, it's so weird a concept, it's almost good, especially as someone who absolutely loves Isekai. In terms of an ongoing story, that is not very good. It's not good at all, especially since the series is actually complete in 3 volumes, and I only found that out after I got to the end of volume 3, and I was like, when's volume 4 out? And there isn't a volume 4. Volume 3, I feel they must have known they were having to wrap it up, because like a whole bunch of stuff rushes towards the end. It doesn't really even feel like an ending by the time they get there. It's very, very strange, especially since I think it's based on a light novel, and I don't think the light novel is complete. I think the light novel is ongoing. Maybe the manga's not done well. I mean, as I said, it isn't great, but I kind of love it. I've given this series a 6.33 out of 10. As I said, it isn't that great. I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you are also quite a big fan of Isekai series, particularly like action-y, fighty ones. When they're, again, as they're in the worlds, it's fun, but the actual like story they try to do outside of the worlds is confusing and not well put together, unfortunately, which is a shame. I feel if it had maybe even 10, 15 volumes, it could have done it a lot better. I kind of see what they were trying to go for, and then it felt like they were building up to something and then crunch, finish it, which is a shame. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, but I do still love it. Next up we have Saviour's Book Cafe story in Another World. I always forget to say the story part without looking. I just call it Book Cafe, Saviour's Book Cafe. This series is like, in my opinion, the series to try and convince non-Isekai fans to try the genre. Personal experiences, people are not keen on trying Isekai because they think it's all male focused power fantasy with very booby harem of women. This is, I feel, I mean, let's just put the villainess genre to the side for the moment. This is, I think, the one to try and lull people in my opinion, and my hope is if this one does well, there'll be more like it. And what I have seen is everyone seems to like it. Everyone who's tried it likes it. I do have a couple opinions, but I do agree this series is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Our main character here, Tsukina, is a 30-something woman in Japan. She's doing okay, lives a quiet life, and God suddenly is like, you need to be Isekai, I need you to go and save this other world for me. She's like, okay, but I have some demands. I want these abilities, and she starts listing out all these abilities she wants, and also she wants just a little house on the outskirts of town, she wants to run a book cafe, that's all she really wants to do. She'll do what she might need to do to save the world, the city, the kingdom, whatever, but she mostly just wants to chill and live a calm life. Damn, mad respect to her, like, in this snowy kingdom, book cafe, cozy as hell. I mean, I got this volume around Christmas time, and I was sat in my armchair with the Christmas tree, and it was like snowing outside, and there was like Christmas music playing, and I was reading this, and I was like, damn, this aesthetic hits hard. I mean, look at that little cozy house. Look at that little cozy snowy house. It's like, because she's so far out of the way, she doesn't really get many visitors at all until a knight turns up. Once again, captain of the guard. I think that's quite a common thing. What's his name? I think his name is Il turns up and starts becoming irregular, and they start becoming quite friendly, and they're quite nice to each other, and they're both quite smitten, but they're both a bit oblivious to the fact they're smitten, and everyone around him knows that he's smitten, and he's very confused because he's normally very like stoic and firm and emotionless, but he, like, when he thinks of her, he like hums and whistles and like, oh, it's so cute. So the kind of plot otherwise that's happening is this world actually already has a savior, but they're not doing a very good job. In fact, they're actually making things worse. So Sakina was kind of sent in to sort them, strain them out. So we do still actually get a little bit of drama, we get a little bit of action. It's not a huge amount. Personally, I prefer more. I think for this series it works out completely fine, and is also good for those who aren't keen on action as much and they want a bit more romance. It's very cute, light romance. Oof. I do have a couple of slightly negative things about the series which are slightly spoilery, so jump ahead a bit if you don't want to hear them. My only real complaint about the series is because it's complete in 5 volumes, the first arc actually completes by the end of volume 2, and then they kind of spin up another arc for the last 3 volumes, and almost a third arc just for volume 5. In my opinion, I think it would have run better if it was just one arc for the 5 volumes. Even though it might have been a little dragged out, but I think that would have been my preference. The end of volume 2's arc felt definitely a whole lot rushed. I also think the first arc of the series was way better than the second arc and what happened in the 5th volume. Ben's opinion was like, he read volume 5 and he was like, they didn't even need a volume 5. There's like a bit at the end of volume 5 to end the series. They could have just put that at the end of volume 4. Like, volume 5 almost wasn't really needed too much. Saying that, even though it is complete of 5 volumes, I think I'd have still happily had some more. I cried a bit at the end of the 5th volume, and there is a really nice... So actually, what's quite common at the end of Isekai manga is you actually get a short, like, chapter of light novel style actual words, usually written by the light novel artist as like a author, as like a bonus for the manga volume, and this one in the final volume was really sweet, and it kind of just was a bit more of seeing into the relationship between the 2 characters, which I don't think you saw as much in the manga. Even with that aside, I still think it's a really lovely, heartwarming romance isekai series to try if that is the sort of thing you're more interested in over action and boobies. And since it is complete at 5 volumes, it's not horrendous to try and get into. There's actually some complete series in this, I've just realised, yay! I believe there are actually light novels, just not in English yet, though I really struggle to actually find any information about them. I've had more than one person tell me that they do exist though, so I'm gonna hopefully hope that people wouldn't tell me porkies. I would love to get those if I could, if they printed them in English. And also, this is the giveaway volume for the video. To enter, make sure that you like the video and are subscribed to me, Caketinz. And finally, I want you to comment down below what you would love to, what would be like your ideal like book cafe? What would be your ideal setting to sit and read this volume? Like if you're in a book cafe or something like that. Maybe just make sure you've got book cafe in your comment, and then if you choose to add more, I'd love to read it. I've made that too convoluted. Book cafe. This is actually not even the first time I've given this volume away. I love this series so much. I think this is the second time I'll have given a volume away, and I can absolutely see myself giving it away in the future. I'd really love to give a full set away. I want to do more like set giveaways, or if they're short enough. I have given this series an 8.4 out of 10. Might not seem like it, but we are making progress. Next up we have Ascendance of a Bookworm. Ascendance of a Bookworm is quite a classic isekai, I feel. I see a lot of people talk about it. It's got an anime, it's got quite an established light novel, and also a lot of figures from what I can tell. There seems to be a lot of figures for the series. So our main character, when she is on Japan, is a massive book fan. She loves books. And she is, I think, putting a book away one day, and they all kind of fall on her and she dies. I've had multiple people tell me that that is what's going to happen to me, and I don't doubt them. When she's reborn, she is in the body of Min? I assume it's Min. I've never been too sure how to pronounce it, and I should have checked. Whoops. I'm going to say Min, and I'm otherwise apologise. Reborn into the body of Min, who is a very sickly 4-year-old girl. So it is a fantasy world that she is born into. There's a little bit of magic, but not overly. She is born into a family, not of like complete poverty, but they're not doing too great. They do okay. Her dad is a guard for the city, but otherwise they kind of have to, they forage their own food and stuff like that. Now, at first, she's like, what the hell's happened? What's going on? And then she starts to understand a bit more and she's like, it's fine, I can just read some books. And everyone's like, what's that? So begins the tale of her trying to create books. All she wants to do is be able to read. But like, when I say create books, I mean like from the bare basics. Like she's like, okay, how do we create paper? Experimenting, creating different types of paper. Okay, what about ink? What about binding? What about clay? What can we use to do that? And also along the way, she ends up sort of creating other things from her past life, like shampoo or proficient ways of creating tools and stuff, knitting, yarn, that kind of thing, detailed embroidery. I really, really like Isekai where they bring stuff from their previous life, like they do in this one, and I think Ascendance of the Bookworm is one of the ones that does it best. Unfortunately, because she's quite sickly, she really does struggle. She has problems. She relies on help from her friends and her family quite a lot. Sometimes things that she wants to be able to do, she can't because she's sick. We do gain a whole bunch more information going forward, but predominantly the premise at the beginning of the series is she wants a book, I'm going to make them. Actually, the subtitle for part 1 is if there aren't any books, I'll just have to make some, which leads me into my next comment about the series. Figuring out which volumes of Ascendance of a Bookworm to read can be a bit confusing because it is one of the few manga series that releases in parts. Other prominent ones I can think of are ReZero and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And then also if you want to read the light novels, they are also in parts, whereas like ReZero's light novels aren't in parts, but ReZero's manga is. But the manga and light novels for Ascendance of Bookworm are in parts. For example, the manga of Ascendance of Bookworm Part 1 is 7 volumes, whereas Part 1 of the light novel is only 3. I mean, that is to be expected. You get way more content from manga out of a light novel, often 2 to 3 volumes per light novel is generally average from my experience. But then trying to collect them can, I understand, get a little confusing, especially when you're like, okay, do I need Part 3, Part 4? Part 3, volume 4 for manga, or part 2, volume... yeah, I get confused. Which means that in my spreadsheet, each part has its own row, which does upset me a little because it means I have 3 rows at the moment. I have 2 rows, for Ascendance of a Bookworm manga, and like 4 rows for the light novels. As I said, part 1 of Ascendance of a Bookworm is complete at 7 volumes, and Ascendance of the Bookworm part 2 is currently ongoing at 6, but my 6 has not yet arrived yet, in English. So they are also printed online, and I think it is way more ahead. In fact, I think 3 is already starting to publish the manga digitally. I'm gonna squint on that one, I'm not too sure. The light novels are like on part 5 or part 6. They're quite far ahead. In fact, Ben actually has all of them, I think apart from maybe 1, and I've got loads of them secondhand for him, and he's really excited to start reading that one. They can be a bit pricey, so they are published by J Novel Club, and I know you look at them and you're like, oh my god, they're so thin, but what I must say is they are dense boys. They are dense, beefy boys. They are not quite the same number of pages as say a normal Viz, but it's actually way closer than you might expect. Whereas a Viz might be 180, these might be like, let's check. Actually, this is 180. Is it? What's a Viz? Where's a Viz? So this volume of Random Claymore that was here is 190 pages, and I think this might actually be 194. Counting it, I'm not sure if I've counted that correctly, but they are about the same number of pages. J Novel Club volumes are just really dense, and I do actually kind of appreciate it because it means I can fit more on my shelf. The thing about Isekai, I mean, it's not just Ascendance of Bookworm, but a lot of Isekai is, you often do get that light novel bit at the end, which does take up a few pages, so that might also put people off. I mean, there's a couple of pages of ads, but Claymore had a few pages of ads as well. I'm not really going to count that as a negative towards this, because Claymore had it as well. So I think there are about 28 volumes of the manga route in Japan, but I think a chunk of those might be digital. It was a bit confusing to tell, to be honest, but J Novel Club do actually have quite a good digital provider if you are interested in reading ahead before getting the physical volumes. So J Novel Club can be a little bit more expensive. Sometimes I do find them secondhand, sometimes I just find them on sale. They do sometimes pop up on sale, in my experience. Because I treat them as different series so they can fit nicely in my spreadsheet, my averages are also a bit different. So Ascendance of Bookworm Part 1, I've given 8.29, and Ascendance of Bookworm Part 2 is on a 7.6. And I know I've already shown them, but I didn't show them side by side. Here is the manga and here is the light novel. Again, quite a bit more shading on the light novel cover from my experience, which helps tell the difference quite a bit. Also, her face is actually kind of different, you can tell. I can't believe my phone's not giving up on me at this moment. Wow. And we're almost an hour into recording. I don't know how much it'll edit it down to, but we're about an hour into recording at the moment. I'm gonna drink some more water. Next up, we have Villains Are Destined to Die. So this is a manhwa print by Ise Press, and there are currently 3 volumes out, though volume 4 is out soon, I think, or I hope. I think it actually comes out in July, and this is June, obviously, but I think it is out soonish. I am loving the colours on the spines so much. In fact, actually, Yen Press sent me a big juicy box of manga and manhwa, and they sent me 8 copies of this, so I did a big massive giveaway of this volume earlier in the month, and I think even most of them have arrived, yay! So this is what I meant by I have some series in this that probably would fit in other videos. This one definitely was originally going to be in the Villainess video, and then I was like, actually no, it's one of my favourites, I want to talk about it in my favourite video, and I can do that because it's my video. Our main character is really into playing a mobile otome game called Daughter of the Duke Super Love Project. Of course. It's called something like that. This game has 2 modes. It has the mode where you play as the heroine, who quite easily is able to romance all of the men in the game, and there is also a super hard mode where you play as the villainess. And the reason that it is super hard is the men affection ratings often start in the negatives and already have quite a negative disposition to her because she's been quite mean. So sometimes Villainess series, when they jump in, they start off before they go in before they do all the mean stuff, and sometimes they go in once they've done the mean stuff. And this one, it is absolutely once they've done the mean stuff. And she's been isekai'd into the villainess of the mobile game. She's like, oh shit, oh shit. So she's running through the different routes in the game, trying to be like, okay, which one is least likely to kill me? Because unfortunately, she doesn't often meet a good ending if the guy's affection goes too low. So she's like, okay, trying to work out what to do. So when she's first isekai'd into the game, at first she isn't actually able to say anything she wants. She's only given like dialogue options, which I thought was so good. Oh my god, my love for video games was like shining at this point. I was loving it. She had like different options. She's just like, okay, well, which option of what I can choose will mean I don't die. Quite quickly on, she does manage to turn that off somehow. I can't quite remember exactly how it happened, and she's able to speak freely. But I think the other thing I really love about this series is the affection meters. So in most villainess isekai, often they assume that the roots don't like them because they're the villainess, but now they're a nicer person, they actually love them, but they're usually completely oblivious to that kind of thing. In this one though, they have a number above their head with a percentage that actually is like it is proof of seeing her actions having an effect on their affection. So she does something that pisses them off, it goes down. She does something that makes them a bit more amenable, it goes up. So she can't actually avoid not knowing that she is having an impact for the positive or negative on the different characters. Here we can see one of the guys quite early on, his affection rating is at 0 if it's focused, and I think she needs to get them to 100 to be able to romance them. That is pretty much the story. She is trying to not die and also romance. She's kind of picked one of the routes. She's like, I'm going to try and focus on him. He's going to be my goal. He's my way out of this. Because she's also kind of hoping if I manage to romance them, maybe I'll get out of the game. Because she has no idea what's happening. I feel like a lot of isekai don't think about trying to leave the game. But she is trying to think about that. But also we get a lot of scenarios, like, would you like to complete this scenario? You can get this reward. And she can like accept, deny, that sort of thing. It's like still like we're in a game. We've not completely done away with it like sometimes they do. Also, it's so darn pretty. It's just gorgeous. I mean, the cover of Volume 1 in itself is so pretty. And then even inside, because it's full colour, I think it definitely makes use of the full colour and the shading, and it's just gorgeous. And I'm going to show, hopefully not spoilery, panels from Volume 3, which in my opinion has some of the prettiest artwork so far. Look at this full page spread with Penelope and one of her, I think, stepbrothers. Oh my goodness me, that is gorgeous. I am obsessed. Where's the other one I loved? This panel as well. She looks so pretty with the sun, like low sun catching her like red pinky hair. Oh my goodness me. I don't, like, it was one of the few times I've read something and I was like actually speechless looking at the artwork. I was swept away. I was just staring at it going, isn't this so pretty? It is so pretty. I think the cover of volume 2 might be my favourite so far, but it's hard to choose. Because it's so chunky thick, we get a whole bunch to read. Definitely takes me longer to read than other stuff. But this is definitely, I think, my favourite villainess series in my collection at the moment. I love it so much. Volume 3, I stayed up till like 2 AM on a work night to read it just because I started and I was like, I can't stop. So currently I think there are 5 volumes out, but only 3 of those are currently out in English, with 4 on its way soon. I can't wait to see what nice colours we get. I know I can go look it up, but I kind of want the surprise. So far I've given this series an 8.5 out of 10. How are we still going, you're asking? Well, I really like Isekai. There's a lot of Isekai I like, but we are approaching the end. This is the penultimate series, sorry. There is one more series after this, and then we are done. So next up we have That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I feel a lot of people already know a lot about this series. This was probably one of the very first Isekai anime that became quite big, especially over in the West from my experience. It was also one of the first Isekai that got me into Isekai. So I've said a few times, but like I remember I watched Sword Art Online and I was like, I want more like this, and then I found Konosuba and I was like, I want more like this, and then I found this and I was like, okay, there's definitely like a trend going on. Is there a name for this? And yeah, Isekai, it turns out. So I did actually watch the first season of the anime. For That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime whilst I was at university, and then I started picking up the manga. I really like how chunky they are. Guys walking down the street in Japan, gets stabbed, is reborn as a slime in another world. But he has a few overpowered abilities that mean he himself can get quite overpowered. And it's another series where he kind of starts developing, like, you see a small like village develop and turn into something bigger. You see him bringing stuff from his previous life into this world, and I love seeing that development. I mean, reading volume 1 and seeing like the small village where he begins to live in, and then continuing on the series to much later and seeing what it's become. I love seeing that route of development, that growth, so much. There is a reason this series is so popular, and it's because it is really good. It's also another one where you get quite a lot of like stats and skills and that sort of thing. You didn't really get as much in Konosuba. You kind of got in Sword Art Online, but that was a literal game, so I wasn't too surprised, whereas this one is like, he's been isekai'd. And then he just keeps getting more and more powerful, and it's mostly vaguely lighthearted. Actually, no, there's a lot of like very sad moments. If you're interested in trying like an OP isekai without as much of the harem, then this is probably one I would recommend. Now, there are people who surround themselves around the character Rimuru because they admire him, and some of them are women, but I don't feel like it's the same kind of thing. It's not the same in my opinion, as opposed to other ones where they are very much obviously a harem. So I think my absolute favourite thing about the manga is at the end of every volume we get a bit of food where they've snuck Rimuru in, and we've had one every volume from volume 1, and I absolutely love it. So I didn't bring the full series down because I am currently on volume 21. I did not feel like carrying 21 volumes downstairs, so I only have 1 and 21. And look, there he is as some rice. It has gotten a little thinner over the years, I have noticed. So I don't think we're too far behind in English. I think there's only 23 volumes out in Japan at the moment. So it is starting to release a little slower because we are catching up. There is also a light novel, which again looks quite different, looks more serious. This is quite far along, I want to say. It's definitely in the double digits, if not further. And I think the manga is like 3-4 light novels behind, so we're probably a good like 10-15 manga volumes before we'd catch up the light novel, and the light novel's still released. I also have 2 spin-offs of the series. We have Trinity in Tempest and The Ways of the Monster Nation. Now, unfortunately, I can't say too much about them because I did start to read Ways of the Monster Nation and got a big fat spoiler because it takes place after where the English manga was at that point in time. I got very annoyed and have not touched it since. Something I have multiple times gotten quite grumpy about is it's not always clear how far through the main series you need to be before you can read a spin-off, and I definitely didn't feel clear reading this. I have since looked it up and I think I am now safe to start this one. I can't remember on this one, I can't remember what it said. I just got really grumpy. And I've been picking these up secondhand, so I have a splattering of volumes, but I'm not up to date or anything. I also think there might be another series, but I'm not sure. Oh, there's actually quite a few, but not all of them are English, and I can't remember which ones are not in English, basically. As I've said, there is an anime out if you're interested in that kind of thing, and also the light novel. Overall, I have given this series an 8.25 out of 10. Now we are actually, I swear, finally onto the final series of the video, and this is also my favourite isekai ever. I absolutely adore it, and that is A Witch's Printing Office. A Witch's Printing Office is a fun, comedic, light-hearted fantasy with not particularly any serious consequences of what's happening. Our main character was chilling. She'd gone to Comiket. If you don't know Comiket, it's a big fan event thing in Japan with lots of like merch, fan merch of different stuff. Yeah, it's a con, big one. And she's on her way home from that, and she is suddenly isekai'd. And what she's kind of decided to do to try and speed run her way to try and find a magic that can take her home is to kind of set up an equivalent of Comiket in this world called Magica. It's a con where people are invited to come and showcase their magic, and people buy magic books from each other, and it gets remarkably popular. Really popular. Like, people have to fill in forms to apply, and there's like limits and tables and maps, and it's way better than I'm making it sound. So the printing office title comes from the fact when they're not running Comiket, she actually runs a printing office. So when she's been isekai'd, I can't remember if she gains or just has innately the ability to copy one page from one piece of paper to another, and that includes, I think, the magic, or maybe just information about the magic. So people will come to her printing office and like, here's my book, I need 10 copies, and she'd be able to copy each page to create copies, and then they bind them and all that. And it's just great. It's really good. It's lovely. The comedy is amazing. I love all the characters. There's no one I don't like. I actually was laughing out loud reading this. It's wonderful, and also the art does not have the right to look as good as it does. Look at this chapter cover, how gorgeous is that? I mean, I absolutely love the, like, do I need to make it focus? The solid black outlines and black bits. It looks so good. I'm not too sure why I've adored it as much as I have, but I just have, and I really, really, really do love it. I know some people have been put off because there is booby characters, but they are just booby. I mean, there isn't really anything too weird. Sometimes they give cuddles to the main character here, but it's not like they're just booby. So it actually is complete in 6 volumes. I did not know it was complete in 6 volumes until I was halfway through volume 6, and I was not emotionally prepared for that. I had a little bit of a breakdown. Poor Ben having to deal with that. I was not expecting it, lost my mind, loved it. I really quite like the ending. I'm very, very picky about endings of series, but I really did like the ending of this one. I was very happy with it, I think. No, I didn't want it to end. Oh, what am I saying? Something I realised I didn't say is the main character is called Mika, and is actually the other character from an isekai series that we named one of our cats after. Let me see if I can find it. This is Mika. She's not quite as flaccid and cuddly as Yuna is. I mean, she's still fairly cuddly for a cat, but Yuna is another level. But this is Mika. She's a lot more... You're quite loud, aren't you? You're a nice cuddly cat. You say hello. Are you wanting more treats? You want down. Now, because I'm feeling extra generous, I'm also going to give away a copy of Volume 1 of A Witch's Printing Office, because it's my favourite. To enter for this one, like, subscribe to me, Caketinz, and comment down below something that contains the word witch. contains the word witch. Now, I was going to say that you can't enter for both, but no, you can enter for both, but you can't win both. So you can enter for both, but if I somehow draw your name for both, you have to choose which one you want, and then I'll draw someone for the other one. So to enter for this one, you need to make sure that your comment down below contains the word witch. If you can contain a comment that has both witch and book cafe to make it into something really cool, I'd love to see it. I love this series so much. I would love to see more people read it. I know some people have tried it based on my recommendation and haven't been too keen, so apologies if you do try it based on mine and don't like it, but I stand by it. It is my favourite isekai ever. I've given this series an 8.83 out of 10. And I know it's not my highest rated out of the ones I've done, but it's still my favourite. Don't question it. So there we have it, and I've just realised counting it that there are 10. That was inadvertent. I just kept pulling series off the shelf that I quite liked. But we have there my top 10 isekai. I love all of them. I recommend pretty much all of them apart from maybe Exo-Drive. Thank you so much for sticking around for my isekai videos. I knew it probably wouldn't appeal to as many people necessarily, but I've really enjoyed doing them and talking loads about isekai. I do want to do more themed rec videos in the future, but they make me really nervous and I'm scared to do them. But if you are interested, do let me know in the comments if you would like to see more stuff like this. I mean, I have so much more isekai to talk about. I've talked about but not even a quarter of the isekai series in my collection. So I've realised a little too late, unfortunately, my phone had stopped recording, unfortunately. And because I was in the outro anyway, I've just quickly used the webcam I have on my setup instead of setting up my phone again. Mostly I was just saying that I do have a lot of isekai, easily around 200 different series in my collection that are just isekai. And I've talked about a quarter of them, I think, roughly. I've talked about 40. So there's loads of quite big isekai and loads of even smaller isekai that are still really good that I've just not talked about. Rising of Shield Hero, Restaurant to Another World, Farming Life in Another World, Death Mage, Hero's Second Life Revenge, I can't remember the phrasing. There's so many, and it isn't necessarily, I think, they're bad. It's just I was trying to pick and choose and not have a horrendously long set of videos. I say that. This video is easily going to be about an hour. If you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I have actually the next few weeks of videos already pre-recorded, edited, and uploaded. If you're interested in early access to all of them right now, check out my channel memberships. I'm going to be putting some effort into some different types of videos I really fancy having a go at while I've got a bit of a head start over the next few weeks. And if you're interested in entering the giveaways, be sure to comment down below some sentence containing the words that I said earlier that I definitely remember. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and if you've watched all these videos, an extra thank you. It really means a lot. I have enjoyed doing them a lot more than I thought. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!